The massive sun burned crimson in the sky, its swollen mass dwarfing the jagged skyline of Nova Prime. Wren stood at the edge of the crystalline lake, feeling the heat on her face despite the environmental shields. She gazed at the city's towering spires reaching for the stars, a testament to human perseverance in the face of cosmic upheaval. Wren activated her neural link. Data streamed across her vision, core temperature rising, shield integrity at 68%, estimated time to Nova event 47 hours. The numbers confirmed what she already knew. They were out of time. She strode towards the city, each step measured and deliberate. The scarlet foliage of alien trees swayed in the artificial breeze, a stark contrast to the gleaming metal and glass of Nova Prime. As she approached the outskirts, she heard the chaotic sounds of a civilization on the brink. "Dr. Nakamura!" a voice called out. Wren turned to see her assistant, Kai, running towards her. His usually pristine lab coat was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. "The council's gathered," Kai said, catching his breath. "They're waiting for your final report?" Wren nodded, her face a mask of calm, belying the storm within. They walked in silence through the crowded streets. Citizens hurried past, their faces etched with fear and resignation. Some carried belongings, clinging to hope of evacuation. Others sat in doorways, staring at the bloated sun above. The central spire loomed before them, its base wider than some small towns Wren had known on Earth. They entered, passing through security fields that pulsed with energy. The elevators shot upwards, inertial dampeners barely keeping pace. The council chamber buzzed with tense conversation. 12 faces turned to Wren as she entered, hope and dread mingling in their eyes. "Dr. Nakamura," Administrator Zari said, his voice cutting through the noise. "Your findings?" Wren took a deep breath. "The solar stabilization array has failed. Our efforts to halt the star's expansion have been ineffective." Murmurs rippled through the room. Zari leaned forward. "And the evacuation plans?" "Insufficient," Wren said. The word hung in the air, heavy with finality. "Even with all available ships, we can only transport a fraction of the population. And there's no guarantee any evacuees would reach safe harbor before the shockwave." Silence fell, broken only by the soft sound of environmental systems. "Then we have no choice," Zari said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We must activate the Omega Protocol." Gasps and protests erupted around the table. Wren felt her heart race, but kept her voice steady. "The Omega Protocol is untested. The risks outweigh certain annihilation," Zari interrupted. "You've seen the data, Doctor. It's our only chance." Wren closed her eyes, calculations and probabilities racing through her mind. When she opened them, resolve hardened her gaze. "I'll need full access to the quantum core, and a team of our best engineers." Zari nodded. "You'll have whatever you need. Go." The next hours passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Wren worked tirelessly, manipulating holographic interfaces, her mind grappling with equations that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The Omega Protocol was audacious, bordering on insane, an attempt to create a localized pocket of warped space-time, shielding Nova Prime from the coming stellar cataclysm. As the deadline approached, fatigue clawed at Wren's consciousness. She forced it back, running final simulations. Kai appeared at her side, offering a steaming cup of synthetic caffeine. "It's time," he said softly. Wren nodded, taking a final look at the readings. Everything was in place. It had to work. She keyed in the activation sequence, each keystroke echoing in the sudden quiet of the control room. A low sound built around them, rising in pitch and intensity. Through the viewport, Wren watched as a shimmering field began to envelop the city. The sun flared, streams of plasma reaching out like grasping fingers. Then it went nova. Light brighter than 1,000 suns erupted. Wren instinctively shielded her eyes even as the viewport's filters darkened to near opacity. The ground shook, alarms blared, and for one terrible moment, Wren thought they had failed. But the shaking subsided. The alarms fell silent. Wren looked up, blinking away after images, and gasped. Where once there had been a sky full of stars, now there was nothing. An inky void surrounded Nova Prime, broken only by the faint shimmer of the space-time bubble. They had done it. They were safe. Cheers erupted around her. Kai embraced her, tears streaming down his face. "You did it, Doctor. You saved us all!" Wren allowed herself a small smile, relief washing over her. But as the celebration continued, a nagging doubt gnawed at the back of her mind. She turned back to her console, running new calculations. Her blood ran cold. "Kai," she said, her voice barely audible above the jubilation. "Get me Zari, now." Minutes later, the administrator stood beside her, face grave as he absorbed the data on the screen. "We're cut off," Wren explained, each word carefully measured. "Completely isolated from normal space-time. And the bubble, it's shrinking." "How long?" Zari asked. Wren met his gaze, her eyes filled with the weight of unintended consequences. "A year, maybe 2. Then the bubble collapses, and with it..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Zari understood. They had saved Nova Prime from instant destruction, only to condemn it to a slow, inexorable end. Outside the viewport, citizens celebrated in the streets, oblivious to the truth. The void beyond the bubble stared back, infinite and uncaring, as humanity's last refuge drifted into an endless night. This has been Bubble in the Void, an amazing sci-fi story. Thank you for listening.